Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. Tonight is a continuation of this crime stories, true crime stories that a lot of people I know, including myself, really it's sad to listen to, but it's educational as well because you can learn a lot. So before we get into it, I am going to play my theme music.
This for the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and Buddha walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kiss goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti, black girl magic, melanin popping, whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, dog.
Welcome back. So again, thank you for tuning in to Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. Again, we are going to talk about DV. Some words I can't say on YouTube, but if you look at the ticker tape at the bottom of this screen that's scrolling, you will understand the nature of the topic. So I just want to let everyone know that there is trigger warnings because we are talking about DV and intimate violence. So with that being said, if you have any questions respectfully for my guest, feel free to put it in the chat. And more importantly, please like, subscribe, share this video with anyone that you know, because we all can have a healing moment with this conversation. So once again, my name is Ursula B, and I'm a Black girl getting her shift together. All right. I'm going to bring my wonderful, beautiful guest out of the green room, Miss Sonja Holt.
Hey. Salam.
Sonja.
I'm great, darling. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for coming on. And I am very pleased to have you on tonight.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I just want to let everyone know I've talked to Sonja a few times. She is a very kind soul. So I know you all are, it's going to exude through the screen. So just stick in there. And I just want to read a little bit and let you all know about Sonja. So Sonja J. Holt is a nonprofit leader. She's an entrepreneur, a transformation strategist, which I love that name, and a trainer who cultivates spaces for recovery and healing. As an overcomer of DV, domestic V, Sonja brings a unique perspective and gained her own transformation journey and extensive training to help others flourish. She is the CEO of Sonja J Enterprises, which is a personal service company, and the proud founder and executive director of Second Chance at Renewing Self, which is also known as SCARS. We will talk about that a little later on in the episode. But SCARS is a healing center, domestic V awareness and empowerment organization that provides survivors a pathway of well-being and healing. I can go on, but lastly, I like to say that when she's not empowering, she's educating, and Sonja enjoys spending time with her circle, listening to music, or cuddling with her bunny Q-Tip. Okay, that's a cute name.
Thank you.
That's so cute. And you know, last week I had a therapist on, and she is a wonderful soul like yourself, and we talked about how pets have healing benefits for your mental health. So now here you are talking about Q-Tip.
Indeed.
I love it. So, wow. Do you want to say anything before I go into these questions?
Mm, no, nothing special. Just hey, beautiful people.
I told you all she's so kind. All right, let's get into some of these questions so we can get to know Miss Sonja Holt. But before I do that, can you tell everybody where you're located?
I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, in the VA.
In the okay. So we're going to talk about relationships.
Mm.
If anyone in the chat, if you have a relationship, just drop a one in the chat and just let me know how your experience is with your relationship. But tonight we're going to talk about Sonja's past. The key word is past relationships. And the beautiful thing about this, if anybody is in a DV situation, a relationship, situationship, just know that you can also say that that could be a past relationship like Miss Sonja. So, speaking of relationships, when did you enter this particular relationship?
I was 20. So in 1997. So it was a long time ago. But yeah, I was 20 years old. Um, and he was 27.
Okay.
Oh, yes. And I've always had a thing, unfortunately, for older people. But
Guilty.
that's,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just always have.
Right.
But yeah, he was 20, and I've always been, I guess, more. I've always been an independent, kid, and
Mhm.
um, I've always been the one that was a little bit more wise and just more advanced, I guess.
Oh, really?
Not meaning fast, not meaning I was
No, I
a
wouldn't
girl,
take it
but
like that.
just like I was always the more mature one.
Right, right.
Um, but yeah, so I met this individual
Mhm.
actually through at my job that I was working at the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he didn't work there with me, but he would come in. It was a cafeteria that I worked at, so he and his friend would always come in to eat.
Mhm. Oh,
And
wait, I hear a little feedback.
okay,
Now I don't.
now you don't. Okay, I don't
Well,
know.
that's good. Okay.
All right. But yeah, so we actually were not supposed to be together.
Why do you say that?
Because we went out. So his friend that he would come in with, and one of my girlfriends that I work with,
Uh-huh.
they were talking. And so, they wanted to go out. So we were their scapegoats, basically. They were, hey, come on out with me,
Right.
And so he and I are just kind of sitting there looking at each other like neither one of us wanted to be there.
Got it.
And
Okay.
so we didn't even have a conversation with each other. And then the friends wanted to go out again. They dragged us along again. And so that second time, it was like, okay, well, we're here. We might as well at least have a conversation with each other, if we got to
Mhm.
be here. So we just started talking and found out that we had a lot in common and we enjoyed one another's company. From there, he and I went out together and, by ourselves.
Right.
And from there, things just kind of continued on. And, we talked on the phone and, we found out that we liked each other.
Mm.
But, you know, from that, he had told me that he was married, but was separated from his wife.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, you know, all right. Or are you going through a divorce? Like, what does this look like? Yeah, we're going to get a divorce. I'm living with family. Okay, fine.
Did he have kids?
He had kids at the time. There was one son and then one that was like a toddler.
Okay.
So yeah, there were two children. And he would tell me about things with the family and all that kind of stuff. And we spent time together, continued on.
Mhm.
After about a year or so, I mean, things were great with us.
Mhm.
We went out, we had a great time, we traveled. He spoiled me. I was already a spoiled. girl. So
Right.
it just kind of fell right in line. And about a year and a half after we had started dating, we actually moved in together.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
How was that relationship in the beginning?
it was great. There were things that I had found to be a little odd, but I didn't know what it was. Like it was like, why are you moody? Like why are you like
Mm.
it would just be little things, nothing super duper major at the time, but
Mm-hmm.
just little things every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Now after we moved in together, things started kind of seeping a little bit more, like, you know, and so one thing I will say, so he was a mechanic and he will work long hours. When
Oh,
we
okay.
Yeah, so when we weren't living together, it was like, oh, okay, he's at the garage. When we moved in together, I was like, okay, well, you're coming home at 1, 2, 12 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
which was weird, but I'm like, well, I don't know the mechanics business. So if you're telling me you're working on somebody's car, then I believe what you
Right.
say. But, as we, started living together more, things started showing themselves a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And
Can
I
I interject? May I? Can you
absolutely,
talk about before you all moved in, or maybe it was while you all were living together, that incident with him and his mom when she made that comment to you? Because I
yes,
would have shook the table. You hear me?
yes. Now,
And the house. But go ahead.
now, you know what? And looking back, and
Uh-huh.
so I'll talk about some red flags, because
Right.
looking back now, I see stuff probably 6 months into our relationship
Wow.
that I
Right.
didn't know what it was then.
Mm-hmm.
That now I'm aware and I'm educated. I know that they were red flags,
Right.
right? So, so the first thing, and I'm gonna get to that situation with
Take your
mom,
time. Take your time.
because that was probably the second one for real.
Oh.
So, and again, I didn't know what it was. So the first one would have been, we were out at a club one night, and so we're out dancing, and my mom was here from out of town,
Mm-hmm.
and so she, myself and him, we went out. And he and I are on the dance floor dancing. Of course, back in the 90s, you could still smoke in the club, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people are in the club smoking. He and I are on the dance floor. This guy has a cigarette in his hand like this, and he's dancing, and the cigarette is kind of, to his side because he's dancing with the woman. And the way that we were facing, I'm here and my ex is in front of me, and the guy with the cigarette is behind my ex, and I could see the cigarette. So I kind of took him and kind of turned him a little bit because I didn't want him to get burnt with the cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
So he blows this all out of proportion. What are you turning me for? What are you doing? And he accuses me of knowing this man and cheating with him and all of this kind of stuff, like blows up in the middle of the dance floor. And
Really?
I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? I don't know this person. I'm looking out for you because I don't want you to get burnt by a cigarette.
Right.
So luckily, one of my cousins just happened to have been there. A female cousin had just happened to have been there in the club that night. So I'm upset, and I'm like, what is this? He makes a big spectacle in the middle of the club. We ended up leaving out the club. The bouncers are like, y'all can't come back in here. Now, mind you, he drove.
Wait, Sonja, did you shake the table?
Look, look, okay,
Look.
look.
Oh, we could have been real good friends back in the no.
I'm like, what the heck is going on here? So we leave. He drove. So we have to leave with him. He's raging. So
Oh,
we leave the club. He's driving fast and is fussing and all of this. And mind you, my mom's sitting in the back seat. And she's not exactly sure what to make of all this.
Your mom was in the back seat.
Mom, like I said, my mom was with us. So she's telling him, to calm down, calm down. He's raging, driving fast. Luckily, we didn't live that far from the club, so we didn't have too far to go, but still it was unnecessary.
Right.
So that was that. So, next day things go back to normal, right? There was no discussion about it. It was just next,
Yeah, I understand.
right? You just go on with life.
Yep.
Now the situation with mom, I think that was probably the second biggest red flag for me. I'm at his house one night because he had been staying over there with his parents. He's over there, he's washing clothes, and he invites me over.
Mm-hmm.
So I go over, parents are there, and he goes downstairs to, I guess, put the clothes from out of the washer into the dryer. So I'm upstairs in the room, doors open, and I'm just laying across the bed. I just taken my shoes off, but I'm just laying across the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, mom comes in and she stands at the doorway and she says, you need to leave him alone or something so he can be with his family. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she was like, he needs to be back. He needs to be with his family. You need to leave him alone or something to that effect.
Right.
And I just looked at her and I'm like, it's time for me to go. And so I got up. I put
Was she real nasty about it when she said it, or was just a matter of fact?
It was very matter of fact.
Okay.
It was really matter of fact. Now, mind you, I found this very strange because this was her second time meeting me. The first time she met me, she was super impressed with me because her and the husband had been on a cruise or a trip or somewhere. And I drove with him to go pick them up from the airport.
Mm-hmm.
And she was so impressed that I said that I would drive back because the car was stuffed with their luggage and everything. And when we got back to the house, I waited around. They wanted to go get something to eat, and I just hung out with them or whatever. She just thought that was just so great. And and I'm like, okay, here you are now talking about I need to leave him alone and let him be with his family. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
So I get up, put my shoes on. I'm like, I'm out of here. He sees me leaving. He was coming up the stairs and, he's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm leaving because your mom is like, she's coming at me. So I'm out of here. He comes, running out the house. Don't leave. You stay right here. I'm at my car by this time. So he runs back in the house and starts blasting off on her. And I could hear him, I'm outside, but I could hear him fussing and cussing at her. And I'm like,
did she fuss back with him, or it was just him you heard?
I could just hear him. I could just hear him. I don't know if she was saying anything.
Okay.
But I could hear because he was so loud. And I ended up leaving and he was like, come back in the house. I'm like, no, I'm not going to stay anywhere where I am not wanted. So, or where I'm not welcome. I'm like, one thing I was taught is number one, you don't overextend, overstay your welcome.
Right.
You don't stay places where you're not wanted. So I ended up leaving. He wanted me to stay. But I ended up leaving and I went home. So, looking back now, I'm like, yeah, that right there. If you will talk to your mother like that, what would you say to me if that's how you talk to your own mom?
Right. I want to ask anybody listening, and remember, this is a judge-free zone. If you want to share your red flag briefly, you can drop it in the chat, or if you could just put a red flag, I'll know that you've ignored a red flag. And can someone drop a red flag in the chat for me?
Me too.
So we need at least two red flags in the chat.
2 red flags.
Yes. So go ahead.
So, those, again, red flags, things that I didn't recognize. I'm 20 at this time. I would think I might have been 21.
Okay.
Hadn't been through, like, that wasn't my life. I didn't grow up like that. I didn't grow up in those situations.
Speaking of growing up,
Yeah.
if you can briefly talk about growing up? So I saw that your parents were divorced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My parent, I grew up in the military. I was, military brat. My dad was in the military. And I have traveled to a lot of different places, lived a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up a daddy's girl.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was 13, my parents got divorced. I say that when my parents got divorced, my dad divorced me.
Why do you say that?
Because he kind of removed himself from my life.
Mm,
Our relationship went from being a daddy's girl to very estranged. Like it was, I felt abandoned. I felt like,
mhm.
they were both still in California, but he was still, even though they had divorced, like, he was still due for her. If she needed something, he was still due. I was on the East Coast. I had came out here to, when I, was time for me to go to college, I came back East. But, when I was still in California, I yearned for my dad. And because he was military, like, when he would come to town, he would tell me that he was coming. He would never show up. He'd come to town. I didn't know he was there. When I went to college, I guess it became easier for him to kind of forget about me. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
And then when I met my ex, he didn't, at that point in my life, at 20, like I said, I yearned for my dad. I used to cry about my dad
Mm,
not being there, not understanding. My birthday would come and go. Why haven't I heard from my dad? Uh,
right.
and it was something that it was foreign to me, because that was not how I grew up. And so, with me letting X know that, and crying about my dad and wanting my dad,
Mhm.
him knowing that I didn't have that covering, right? I didn't have that there. I had plenty of male cousins, I have uncles, I have all of that.
Mhm.
But my dad, right?
It's so funny you say this because I've done several shows and I've experienced the fatherless daughter, and I couldn't see it because my father was in the home, but in reality, he was emotionally unavailable. So this is why I'm so glad you're on, because people can see that abandonment, emotional unavailability, it looks different, but the results are the same. And not saying like the same exact storytelling, but the same actions, the same yearning that you want somebody to fill that void. So that's why this story resonates so much. Hey, Quita, I want to read this. This was very profound. And this is why I love talking to you, Sonja, because while you and I are talking, you have said several times, well, looking back at it and looking at it now. So Quita said, I'm so excited for her empowerment through education. Once we're aware, that's the key word. Once we're aware, we can further seek info and help to save ourselves. And I
Yes.
love that she said the ourselves, because I feel, and I'm saying this because I've been like this before. I will look for other people, other relationships to save me as opposed to saving
Mm,
myself, right?
yes.
So Quita, thank you for that. That was very powerful. And she also said that talking to his mom like a dog doesn't register to us when we're so young.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because at the time I looked at it as almost like he was coming to my defense, right?
Hmm.
Like, he was coming to my defense to protect me from,
Right.
even though, yes, that was his mother, and he absolutely should not have been talking to his mom like that. But at the time, it was like, oh, he's making sure that I'm okay, kind of a thing.
This comment is very true. Vicinda was also a guest on my show, and I would love for you all to connect. Seriously, her situation, she was on a show similar to like yours. What is it? Evil lives here, sleeps
Evil
here,
lives here.
lives here. She
Mhm.
has a similar DV story,
Okay.
extremely powerful. And when I listen to both of you, the strength just is like osmosis because you all are now looking back. She also has a past ex. You get it?
Indeed.
So she said that he used that against her, meaning when you talked about the father, the abandonment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally did. Totally. And I see it and I recognize it, that was absolutely something that was used against me. And it allowed him to be able to kind of weasel his way in, right? And
Absolutely.
to look like my knight, you
Yeah.
know, and like the savior kind of a thing. And like, I'm here to protect you, right? You
Mhm.
don't have him, but I'm here. I'm here to protect you. Everything is going to be okay because I'm here. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, which that was not the case.
Exactly. So let's pivot into
Mhm.
I have to figure out how to say this because YouTube won't let me say some words.
Yes.
When did the physical V's start? The physical
Domination.
altercation start?
hmm Um, After we moved in together. So the first physical act started, actually happened. We moved in together in like 90, early 99. And
Mhm.
the first physical act happened actually New Year's Eve of,
Oh.
well, 99 going into 2000.
Are
That
you serious? And that's how you ended and started a year? Wow.
is how the year ended. It
Well, not
ended.
you did, but I should
hmm
take that back. That's how your year ended and how it started
hmm Yeah, that was
by his hands.
yeah. And um I'm sorry. So that was the second. The first physical act was, actually he had pushed me down in the kitchen, and um, he had some friends over, and they were getting ready to leave, and I said something to him, and still to this day I can't remember what I said, but whatever it was I said, I'm standing in the kitchen. Whatever it was enough for him to do a complete 180 and rush back into that kitchen. And before I knew it, I was down on the floor. And luckily, his friends were outside and they could hear me screaming. And they came in and they got him off of me and they took him out. And he was,
Really?
mm-hmm. And it just shocked me. It shocked me. He didn't hit me or anything. He just kind of, you know, jacked me and I was down.
Oh,
And like I said, it scared me. And so then the second time, which was the first real fight, um, I'll say, and that was New Year's.
mm,
We had just taken, we had a party at our house. And so, my family was over, he had some friends over, and we had a great time. And we had taken that at the end of the night, after midnight had came and all that, party was over.
uh-huh.
We were taking my cousin home, and my ex he had driven a different route than I normally would to go to my cousin's house.
Mhm.
Just asked him, I was like, well, why are you going this way? And his response was basically like, you don't tell me how to drive. I go the way that I want to go. And
Mhm.
I'm like, all right, cool, whatever.
Right.
We get there, drop my cousin off, get back home, and he starts back up with me again, about me telling him how to drive. And I'm like, this is dead in the water. Why are we bringing this back up again?
Right.
And he brings it back up again. We argue, we start arguing about this. And before I knew it, I'm sitting on the bed. He's standing over top of me. And he gets on top of me and knocks me back, and
Mhm.
he headbutted me. And I did not realize that when he headbutted me, that it split my forehead open.
Oh my God.
And so I have blood like coming from my forehead. And I got up, and I had another friend now that stayed the night at our house that night. She's in the living room, and she could, hear me. And so when I came out of the bedroom to go to the bathroom, she asked me if I was okay. And I'm like, I'm fine. Go back to sleep. I'm okay. And I go in the bathroom and I look at my face, and I have blood, pouring off from my face. At this time, I'm freaking out. And I'm like,
Yes, I would have too.
I'm like, oh my God. So I get back in the bedroom, and he's, apologizing.
Was he crying? You know they do that.
At this particular time, he wasn't. He started crying later in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
This one, he was just apologizing. Baby, I'm sorry. I'll never do it again. This, that, and the third. And, I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. I'm all right. And I had to make up a lie to my family about my forehead, because at this time I had short hair. Hair was relaxed back then, and it had a short cut. Luckily, I had bangs, so I could put my bangs over top of my cut, because the cut is right here in the middle of my forehead.
So that's the cut in the video that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. It's coming together now.
Mm-hmm. And so I was able to put my bangs over top of it. And, the one time that my family did see it, I just told a lie and was like, oh, yeah, we were playing, and I hit my head on the end table of the bed. Ooh. And that was my lie that I told up until 15 years ago, when I finally left and I finally told them what the truth was.
Really? Well, we have a question here.
Yeah.
Lucinda wants to know, did you blame yourself?
Yeah. In the beginning, I didn't. It wasn't until things kept continuing to happen, because, he would tell me things like that. He would tell me things like I was doing things in my sleep, that, when he would not come home at night, that it was, my fault. When I found out about, this could lead us down a rabbit hole, because I don't want to take things out of order, because I will get people confused. But there were so many different stories and lies that were told throughout the years that I didn't know at the time were lies. But when I found out, for instance, one thing was, like I said, he was a mechanic. Mm-hmm. And he was a self-employed mechanic. He had his own garage. And he had always told me that his garage was one particular place, and I had never been there before. Mm-hmm. And then at some point, his garage moved. Well, when I found out that the garage truly wasn't where he told me that it was, and I questioned him on it that particular night, and he told me that the reason that he hadn't told me was because when he would come home, I would be asleep. So he couldn't tell me, and that it was my fault that I was asleep when he came home.
See, that's triggering for me. I can't stand a liar. Go ahead. I'm working through this trigger. I'm smiling, but that is just really something for me. Wow.
And, that was, I'm just like, huh? Say again now. Okay, you come in at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not supposed to be asleep, but we talk during the day. So what is the only time that you can talk to me is when you get home? Like, it just didn't make any sense. But, it was one of those things. But, in between, early on in that particular time, because that was actually in 2006 when that happened. Mm-hmm. And between those years, absolutely, I blamed myself, because I blamed myself for, oh, well, I got to do better. And he's telling me that I'm not the woman that he fell in love with.
Mhm.
Or he's telling me that, like I said, I'm doing things in my sleep. And I'm like, well, I have to believe him because I'm asleep. So I don't know what I'm doing in my sleep. So, why would he tell me a lie? But and still, honestly, to this day, I still don't know if some of those things that he told me back then, whether it was true or not.
You
There's still parts in my life that I don't know what was true and what was a lie. There are some things I know, yeah, that was a lie. But there are some things, honestly, to this very day, I don't know.
and I'm glad you're saying and sharing this, because this is the gaslighting for me.
That's
So
gaslighting.
people want to know, well, what is gaslighting?
That's
Sonia just gave a perfect example. And when
gaslighting.
a person tries to distort your reality,
Yes. And think that
and
you are crazy, make you think that you are crazy.
what she just said. And I want people to know also that DV isn't just the physical act. This gaslighting, this is emotional abuse. This is considered DV as well.
Absolutely. And people don't realize that. Like gaslighting, there are many, many people that are sitting in psych wards that are listed as bipolar, that have mental conditions because they have been affected by situations, right? And
Mhm.
gaslighting is one of those things, because if you have an individual that is consistently telling you things
Mhm.
that is really not the truth, and in your mind you're like, and you might start out refuting it, no, that's not true, no, 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 no. But as it continues on, they
Mhm.
have a way of making you believe that something that you truly know is not true is. And then it makes you start questioning yourself
Yes.
and your own mental. I remember sitting one night um, in the middle of my bed, and I was on the phone with a counselor. At the
Mhm.
time, the job that I had an employee assistance program. Remember,
Right.
and part of that is you can get free counseling, right? And so I'm sitting in my bed, and I remember talking to this person on the phone, going, I don't know why I do the things that I do. I just don't understand. I need to change. I need to do
Mm.
better. And all of these were just the things that he was telling me, because there was nothing truly wrong. These were just the things that he was telling me, and I'm doubting myself and I'm questioning myself, and I'm thinking that something is truly wrong with me. And there was nothing
Wow.
that was wrong with me. And here I am talking to a counselor, and they're like, well, they don't know what to tell me because there was nothing wrong.
Oh my God.
But the psychological abuse
Mhm.
was very prevalent for me. The physical was very prevalent. As the years went on, it got worse. The fights became more frequent.
Mm.
And I walked on eggshells. I did not
Yeah.
ever, ever, never know what would set this person off. I and I it didn't have to be anything big. It could be something super minor and super minute. And I just knew that I needed to do whatever I needed to do to make sure that we didn't get into it.
Mhm. Did your family and friends know about the physical
They had
altercation?
no idea.
So did they not know because they didn't know because it was hidden from them, or they just never witnessed it?
They did not know because I hid it very well.
Yeah.
Um, the only thing, so the one friend that I said was at the house that night, like
Mhm.
she kind of knew stuff, but I didn't talk to anybody about it. I did never disclose anything about what was going on. Now, like some of my family members said after I got out that they knew I had changed a little bit, but they never
Really?
imagined that that's what was going on. That
Do
there
you
was. Mhm.
I'm sorry, go ahead. That
Go.
what?
They never imagined in a million years that that's what was going on.
Do you feel that your ex isolated you?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
There was absolutely isolation going on. I had, um, I had always been the one that, would show up early to family functions to help set up, and I'd stay up, stay there after to help clean up. And it had become, come to the point where I would show up super late to stuff, or I would not show up. And I would not show up because I would wait for him. And of course, he would never come, or he would come super late. So I would start missing things. And it's not like
Mm.
me to be late to Thanksgiving dinner. When my great grandmother was still living, we always had Thanksgiving dinner at the house. And that was not like me to be late. And, so for me to be late, that was very out of character for me.
Mm.
But, I would wait around for him to come home, and he wouldn't show. And I didn't want to leave because I didn't want to deal with the repercussions of him.
Oh, that's how it's designed.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
That's how it's designed.
Absolutely.
Anybody listening, if any of this resonates, feel free to drop in the chat what your experience, whatever you're comfortable sharing with. And please make sure and subscribe to the channel and share this video if it's impactful. And I know it is because I see it in the chat. People are loving this story and they're loving your empowerment that you have.
Yeah.
There was something that Quita said, which I love. She said, did I read this already? Impressed by her resilience. Oh yeah, she's impressed by your resilience to rebound and help others, and she's sending love and healing to you and everyone that you're helping.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. I
that's
appreciate that.
beautiful. And also, she said that the Burning Bed film was such a resource for some folks dealing with this.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the aggressor has their own real issue. Girl,
Yeah. Look.
let me get in this microphone.
Look.
She said,
Look.
meanwhile, the aggressor has their own real issues that require help. Fire is.
Look.
He said fire is helpful.
So, look, and so I'm gonna say something that this isn't funny, but I'm not even gonna say it right now. I'm gonna reserve that comment. I'm gonna reserve what she just said.
Girl, say it as long as it won't get blocked on YouTube.
No, because it's gonna come later in our conversation. So I'm
okay.
I'm gonna reserve that.
May I read a few more comments? They are really enjoying you. Yes, I'm loving it. Speak on it. And another experience of gaslighting. Wow, my ex told me I called another man's name in my sleep.
Did we have the same person, X? Because
I told you I want you all to really, really connect.
I was told the same thing. Yes.
And lady, so there's someone new. Hi, lady Saw 999. I'm loving this interview so far. This will help a lot of people. Thank you for that comment. I appreciate that. So there's two more incidents I wanted to ask you about. Actually, I have so many, but I want to respect your time.
We're good.
Can you talk about the hospital incident? When I heard that was so triggering for me. The abandonment issues were triggering. I wanted to shake the table when I was listening to that, but I'll let you tell your version of it. Girl.
This I guess the first year, I guess, of our living together. I guess about a year. And he had called me one day, and he had cut his hand or cut his arm or something when he was working. And he told me he was going to the hospital, to the emergency room. And I was like, okay, well, I'll meet you there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He was like, no, 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 I'll be fine. I'm like, no, I'm gonna come up there. If you're hurt, I'm coming up there with you. So I get there to the emergency room and I walk in and I'm looking and I see him, and sitting beside him is a woman. And I sit up, he just looks at me, doesn't say anything, don't say a
How
word.
far were you all from each other?
We're just sitting right across from one another.
Girl.
In the waiting room, the chairs are pretty, they're not too far away. Maybe what, 3 feet?
That's enough reach. That's
Yeah. And because when I get there, like I said, he didn't say a word. He just looked at me.
Did she look at you or say anything, this woman?
Yeah, but she didn't pay any attention necessarily to me. She didn't know who I was. And so when I walked in and I looked at him, and when he didn't say anything, and I looked, and I'm like, that's the wife. And I'm like, okay, all right, I got you. So I go and I sit down directly in front of both of them. And so I just sat there. So I just sat there and I'm just looking at him. And I'm like, okay. And he never said a word.
Did he look at you?
He would glance up at me every now and then, but never said hi, never said, hey, baby, never, nothing. He's just, I'm like, okay.
Girl.
This is what we're going to do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so the people, they called him, and he had already been to the back. So they called him, I guess, to discharge him or whatever. He goes up and talks to the lady and whatever she gives him. And then he proceeds to walk out the door. So she gets up and she starts walking out also. And so I walk behind them. And so when we get outside to the parking lot, I called his name. And I said, are you really going to pretend like you don't see me?
Mm-hmm.
And he turns around and he kept telling me, Sonja, go home. Sonja, go home.
Girl.
And I said,
oh my God.
I said, what is she doing here? And I guess that's when she realized who I was. I don't know if she still knew who I was, but with the conversation going on. And so he was like, go home, go home. And so I started walking to my car, and he comes behind me. He just kind of hurried me along. And I'm like, what are you doing? And so he was like, get in the car, go home. So I get in the car and I'm like, all right. I get in the car, I drive home, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. So I get home, I took everything that he owned in the house and I put it in the hallway so that when he got home, you get your stuff and you get out. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like we're not doing this. So he gets home not too long after. He sees his stuff and he was like, what is this? I'm like, I'm done. And he was I said, and how are you going to have her at the hospital? What is she doing there? Why did you call her, but you didn't want me to come? What do you, what is this? He was like, well, I had to have, the insurance is still under her name, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. He was like, and I was rushing you because she had a knife and she was going to stab you. And I'm like, what?
Say poke next time, just in case. If YouTube, that's okay. I didn't even think about it unless YouTube's gonna trip. But just say,
but yeah, he was like, yeah, she had, and she, that's what she was gonna do. And I'm like, what? Whatever. Well, needless to say, he talked this way into not leaving. I forgave him. He stays. And so that was that situation. Again, probably another red flag.
Right.
I dismissed, right? I dismissed it. and life went on again. Yes.
Mm.
And again, it was one of those things. And we continued on with life,
Right, right.
you know.
The manipulation was so deep, and then he's already alternate the reality, or your reality was already distorted. These are effects of
Mhm.
mental, psychological. You get
It's the
it?
pattern, right? It's the pattern. And
Right.
so, when we talk about DV and, really just the definition of it, it's a pattern of abusive behavior, right? And
Mhm.
so that's a pattern of particular behaviors. And it doesn't just come one way, it can look multiple ways. And so when an individual is skilled at those behaviors, you can use it can come different all from all different angles. And so when you have
Absolutely.
someone that is dealing with all of these type of behaviors from one individual, and at the same time you have this individual that cares for you, right, even though it might look distorted,
Mhm.
and the individual also says that they love you and that they care for you, but at the same time they're doing these things that don't quite seem like love, um, and they're removing you from your support system, and the only person that you have to depend on is this person.
Yes.
It's a
Ooh.
lot, right? And so when people say things like, why do you stay, or why don't you just leave, it really is not as easy as people want to make it out to be.
Yeah.
And then if you have someone that, you have the physical abuse, the physical going on, right?
Mhm.
Um, you have emotional going on, you have psychological going on, and God forbid if there's sexual going on, and economic.
Oh my God. Yes.
It's a perfect storm, right? It's a perfect storm. And so no, it is not as easy as people want to make it out to believe. And then, at the time I was not a 40-year-old woman. I was a 20-year-old girl,
Mhm.
right?
Exactly.
So yeah.
So, um, I want to talk about the moment of strength that you had. That was so empowering when I was listening to it. I didn't even know you. And I was like, I'm so proud of this woman. But I know you have to talk about the phone call, or when you made a phone call. I
Yeah.
guess you looked at his phone, made a phone call, and then those events transpired into your moment of strength. And I believe this is where the pivot came. So you mind explaining that?
Yeah. So it so I'll start this way. So in 2006, I had left my job. I
Mm.
started a business. Um, and so some months after, he and I had a conversation and decided, okay, I was going to leave my job to dedicate my time to my business, but also help him expand his.
Mhm.
And so I worked as like the office manager, did payroll for his company, blah, 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 paid the bills, all that kind of stuff. Well, this one particular day when I am paying the bills, I was paying the phone bill, particularly the cell phone bill. And so when I went online to pay the bill, and the call log came up, which was weird because I had never done that before, that I could see the call log and in the account. And so I looked at the call log and I noticed that there was some numbers that were repetitive, and they were repetitive at different hours of the day and night. And
Oh,
so, me and my inquisitiveness, um, I'm trying to figure out whose number is this and whose number is that. A couple of them I knew.
right.
There was one particular number that I didn't know. And so I started being I Spy, and I found out who the number belonged to. and end up finding out. I found out who the person was, where she
Oh,
worked, because I had a friend that worked at the same place that she worked. And so found out,
wow.
yeah, like this all came together
It
very, very,
did. I didn't know that part.
yeah.
Wow.
I found out who she was and I got her number and I called her one day. Never said who I was. I just asked if she knew him. She said yes, that he was her mechanic. Asked her how long she knew him. She told me. She just said, that there was nothing going on, that he was just her mechanic. And at the time, like, I just wanted to tell her, girl, run, like, don't. But
Mhm.
I wasn't even at the place where I could do that because I was still in denial. So,
Right.
and so I questioned him about her, and he's just said that she was a friend. She was a, I guess, ex-girlfriend of a friend of his that had got killed. Uh,
Unalived.
Another lie.
No, yeah. Say unalived.
Unalive.
Yes.
Unalive. Um,
I should have told you before. I'm sorry. Go ahead. That's my
um,
fault.
sorry, YouTube. That, yeah, that wasn't with us any longer. And so I was like, okay, but why are you talking to her so much? So he,
Right.
he he weaseled his way out of that, made an excuse for it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. But it still wasn't sitting well with me.
Mm-hmm. That
Um,
intuition is real,
that
isn't
that
it?
intuition. Look, as I got older, I started listening to it and understanding it and really tapping into that because being young, I didn't know, but I learned. I learned. And so I call her, she tells me what she tells me. And then so one day, I guess she told him that I called, and because I hadn't told him that I had called her. And
Mm-hmm.
so she tells him that she got a phone call, and I guess he put two and two together and realized it was me. And when he asked me, I told him yes, I had called her. And then he blasts off on me, why are you calling my customers? Da da, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, yeah, that's not just your customer. Who talks to their customer at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning for
Absolutely.
an hour? Like, come on now. So that there catapulted everything because that blew everything up. And that particular night when that conversation happened earlier in the day, it carried on throughout the night to the night. When we got home that night, um, it blew all the way up.
Did it?
And that was um, the night that he told me, because before this incident, he had threatened to kill me.
Unalive.
He had threatened to really
Unalive.
me. um, and he has brandished a firearm,
A
all
pow pow.
a pow pow. He's pow powed at me, and those,
You said he
things.
pointed a pow pow at you?
He had pointed one, he had brandished it, it had come off in the home. He had
What?
played, Russian art.
Really?
Yeah. And those, and even
Wow.
through those were not things that were enough for me to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Because through that, you asked me about, did he cry? Yes. As time went on, when he started doing things, he would always cry. He would always threaten to harm himself, right? I don't want to be here any longer, and harm himself. And what would I do? I would run to him. I would run to his defense, right? No, you don't want to. Everything will be okay. I'm sorry. Da, 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 things will get better. All of
Mm-hmm.
that. And those things were not enough for me to leave.
Right, right.
But that particular night, when after we got home, and we fought, he beat me that night and told me that if he had had one of those, that he would have
A
me.
pow pow?
Uh-huh. And
What?
incidentally, about 2 weeks before that happened, he had removed that pow pow from the home because it was always in the house. And I don't know why he had removed it, but he had. And
Mm.
told me, he said, if I had one, I would you right now.
That's why it wasn't used that particular night.
Mhm. And so, that night when he said that, and I just looked at him. I didn't I didn't flinch. I didn't anything. I just looked at him like I feel sorry for you, kind of a thing.
Mm.
And he threw a bar stool at me.
What? Did he? I didn't know that.
Like he was like there was only so many things, that in that 1 hour show, like we're talking
Yeah. Don't
11
worry, girl. You're on Black Girls getting their shit together. It's
11 years
okay.
11
You
years of history, that had to go into an hour.
girl,
But
you are talking to production right here. It's all right. Go ahead.
but but yeah, he had threw a bar stool, and the bar
Mm.
stool fell short, and it fell, and I had a glass living room table, the living room table. So the bar stool falls through the middle of the table, glass goes all over the living room. Now the thing was, he had never broken anything in the house before, and or destroyed anything in the house. Like he had punched holes in the wall and that type of thing,
Right.
but he had never broken anything. And I don't know when that happened, like some snap, like, we
With the
talked.
broken glass bar stool? That's what wow.
When I saw that glass just all over the living room floor, and he said that, he would do what he would do. And I just looked at him and I'm like, I feel sorry for you.
Mm.
And, shortly after that, then he started his crying bit. He started his crying bit. He got down on his knees. He started his crying bit. And I didn't run to him that night.
Girl, good for you.
And like something in me at that point, I wasn't scared anymore.
Mm.
I was mad now. And I had never been
Mm.
mad before. And I was like, yeah, I can't do this no more.
Wow.
And like this is, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning by this time. And it was late. I had to be up early the next morning. And so we had went to bed, laid across the bed, fell asleep, get up the next morning. He goes to work.
Like nothing happened.
Nothing happened. He goes to work. And I had actually to be in court the next morning.
For him or unrelated?
No, totally unrelated.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so I go to court. I had, bruises on my face. So I had put foundation on
Mm.
to cover up everything, and finish up the court. And the van I had been driving, because I didn't even have at this time, I didn't even have a car that was mine. I was driving around because I had a beauty supply business. So I was driving around my beauty supply van, and that was my transportation. And it was having some issues. And so after I get out of court, and I called him and I was like, hey, I need you to look at the van. So I go over to the garage. He looks at the van. It needed like some brake fluid or something. He looks at it. Everything's good. He gave me $5 so I can get some lunch. And I go to the office that we shared, that we had our business. And I called my cousin on my way there, and I was like, hey, I need you to meet me at the office and bring your camera. And she was like, okay. So she comes to the office. I had taken my foundation and everything off.
Oh,
And
the mask.
yeah,
I
I
see
had
what you did.
finally removed it.
Whoa.
And she I told her what was going on, what had been happening. I had her take some pictures of me. And she talked to me for about another 2.5 hours because I
And
knew that I wanted to leave, but I needed that last little push.
mm,
And so she talked to me, and that was what I needed. And so I called, I made a phone call to my grandmother. Her and my mom were at the house. And I told them, I was like, I'm coming over. So I get there and I just walk in the door
oh,
and I just stood there in the middle of the floor.
I'm gonna start crying.
You all right?
Yeah.
All right. Take a breath. Take a breath.
Mm.
So I just stood there and my mom looked at me and she said, who did that to your face?
Really? Do
And
you
I
think
didn't,
that they knew?
she knew. I didn't say a
She
word.
did.
I didn't even say anything. I just looked at her and
Really?
she flew off the handle. She flew off the handle. That son
Mm.
of a beep, beep, beep. She was, yeah, she knew. And I proceeded to tell them what had really been going on for the last 11 years.
Wow. How did you feel when you were telling them, sharing this other part of your story that you had isolated from them for so long?
It was like a weight. I
Yeah.
was tired of hiding, right?
Yeah.
Because I had been living this lie for so long, so long. I had been living a lie. And, but I felt like I could finally breathe, I guess you could say,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so, from there, we went to the magistrate and got a protective order. And actually, while I was in getting my protective order, my mom had my phone. She was, outside waiting for me. And he had called my phone because I was supposed to have actually been going with him that afternoon to tow some cars. And so he calls while I was inside. My mom answers the phone. She told him I was in the store and that I will call him when I got out. So when I get out, I called him. And I called him when I got back to the house, when we got back to my grandmother's house. And I told him that I wouldn't be coming to help him with the cars and that I wouldn't be coming back home.
What did he say?
He told me that he didn't want to live without me. And
Excuse me. When he said, I know we have to curve our language because of YouTube, but did he say, I wanted to unalive myself or?
no, he said he didn't. He said, he said, I don't want to live without you.
Okay.
And then I heard a pop and the phone went silent.
A pop like a pow pow?
I just heard a pop. And I was like, what is that? So I called him back. No answer. I called back again. No answer. Then I started freaking out because then it dawned on me that sounded like a G-shot. And I immediately just started breaking down crying. And my mom's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? I told her what happened. She, they're trying to calm me down. A few minutes later, she gets my phone and she calls the number back. No answer. She calls back again. Someone picks up the phone. So she's, I could just hear her. Hello, hello. Who's this? Who's this? And so there's somebody, saying that this man was walking down the middle of the street and pows himself.
What? I didn't know this.
So she was like, what? Well, is he gone? And so the boy or the person says, I don't know. So my mom says, well, I'm going to call back. So I could hear her. And because I'm hearing what she's saying, it's making me more hysterical.
Right.
So, I'm on the floor crying and just boo-hooing. So they're calming me down. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. And again, here I am now blaming myself again, because if it wasn't for me, this wouldn't have happened. So, about maybe 10 minutes or so had passed by. I get calm. She calls back. The person picks up the phone again. It's a boy. Picks up the phone again. My mom says, has the ambulance come? Yeah, they've taken him already.
What?
He was like, what? Now, it had literally 10 minutes max had gone by. It might have even been 10 minutes. She was like, wait, what? What do you mean? So when I'm hearing her, and I'm like, huh? So I grabbed the phone. I'm like, hello, who is this? The person, the boy, he was like, hello. And I recognized the voice. Well, it's who I believe that it is. And still to this day, I don't know, but I believe that it was the apprentice that he had working for him, a 17-year-old boy.
Wow.
That's who I believe that it was, because it sounded like him. And I'm like, you got this kid, you putting this kid up to this mess?
Right.
So once I heard that, I'm like, you know what? Let me straighten myself up, because he's playing, right? You back playing games again. Because this was the time that he had faked being. This was the first time. No, it was about the third. This was about the third time. So I was like, all right, here we go. All right, fine, whatever. So we called the police because I needed to go home to get some clothes because I was going to be staying at, my grandmother. So we called to get a police escort at the house. Police escort meets us there.
Was he there?
No, he wasn't there. So I'm inside getting clothes and stuff. My mom's outside talking to police officer. She tells him what had happened. He calls down to the city to find out if there had been a report of pow-pows. None. So the policeman was like, yeah, this, sounds like,
Yeah.
yes, which it was. And then, from there, he just continued, to play games. After that, he had, emptied out stuff in the house, had taken the dogs. Some months later, I found out that he had taken criminal charges for embezzlement out on me. And the only reason that I found that out was because I had gotten in someone had rear-ended me, and I called down to the police department so I can get a police report for the insurance company. And a cousin of mine works down at the police department. And when she pulls up my name, she was like, you got a warrant out for your arrest.
Whoa. Are you kidding me?
And
girl.
And she said, yeah. Now, this is April of 2009 is when this happened. The warrant was taken out in August of 2008. So it had been months. Thank God I had never got pulled over or anything, because they would have hauled my butt into jail and I wouldn't have known why, because I had a felony warrant out on me.
That was a felony, girl.
He had taken felony embezzlement charges out on me. And so I'm at work having this conversation. And so I had to leave work, go turn myself in. I had to go home, have somebody drive me down to the police department, turn myself in. They drive me down to booking. I'm fingerprinted. They take my shot. I'm sitting in the little cell watching rats run across the floor. And have to go before the magistrate in a video conference. Luckily, you know, I had never been in trouble or nothing before. So they released me on my own recognizance with the $2,500. No, they released me on my own recognizance, but I have to get an attorney for court for the, you know, for the charge. And so, you know, I have to go get an attorney, get a letter, go back for the court date, you know, take the letter that I have representation.
Mm.
You know, I'm working with this attorney and I'm like, I don't even know what these charges are for. So now here I am, you know, trying to defend myself against some charges that I don't even know what this mess is for because I haven't done anything. And so originally our defense was going to be that for jurisdiction, that where he took the charges out for was not where the office was. So my attorney's like, okay, well, you know, we're banking on this. So there was nothing for us to really work up or, you know, no defense.
Right.
We get to court, you know, a month later, we get to court and, you know, he's on the stand. So it's the Commonwealth against me. And he's the witness for the Commonwealth. And so, you know, he gets up on the stand, he's talking and has his case or whatever. And the judge was like, well, jurisdiction does not weigh here because the bank itself is a national bank. So jurisdiction doesn't come into play. And so he was like, well, okay, well, since the only testimony that I have to go off of is this individual's, I'm ready to rule. And then he was like, his testimony is the only that I have to go off. He said it 2 times. And when he said it that second time, I don't know. God just said, he talking to you. And I told my attorney, I said, put me on the stand.
Oh.
And he just looked at me. He was like, are you sure? I said, yes, put me on the stand. He was like, okay. So he tells the judge, you know, my client would like to get up on the stand.
Were you scared? It didn't sound like it.
I didn't know what I was going to say. We hadn't practiced anything.
Oh, wow.
We had had this conversation. So neither me or my attorney knew what we were going to say. Because that was not we were banking on this getting thrown out.
You said, I'm going to speak my speech right now.
That's all.
So what happened when you got on the stand?
So I get on the stand. My attorney, you know, he asked me about how long we had been together, what my position was at the company. And I told him. He talked about the DV piece and, you know, like what that was. And he didn't go into a whole lot of detail again, because we had not talked about this. So he asked me like 4 or 5 questions. He said, okay, I rest my case. Commonwealth attorney comes up. He asked me the same questions that he had talked about with the ex. And my mom says that I put the Commonwealth attorney on trial because I was like, the things that he was asking me, he was very condescending, but the things that he was asking me, they weren't factual. Like, you're asking me things about, he had a printout, a printout of the checking account. And one of the things that was on there was a withdrawal from a bank. It was $280. And so the Commonwealth attorney says, okay, well, what about this check right here? And I looked at it and I said, well, this isn't a check. It says withdrawal. See right here, withdrawal. And, you know, it was just like, you're not, that's not a check. But the things that were checks, because when my ex was on the stand and he would look at the check, he would never say who the check was written to in the check register. He would just say what the check number was, the date, and how much it was for. But how did I not say who the check was written out to?
That was a waste of time. But they don't care. They just want to cause confusion.
Exactly.
And smear campaign, and it's what they do.
That's what they do. So, when they showed me the same checkbook register, I said who it was, who it was written to, what it was for. Two of them were for the mortgage. One was for their lecture company. Like, so, and then after that, I just asked the judge, I said, can I speak to you directly? And he said yes. And I told him, I said, look, I don't have any reason to steal. Like, I quit my job for both of us to help him with his business and to run mine. I'm not taking any trips. I'm not going out shopping. Like, I don't have a nice, extravagant car. Like, none of that. I don't have any reason to steal from us. And so after I finished, he thanked me for getting up on the stand. He said, I understand what's going on now. Now, on my way back to my seat with my attorney, the other side passes this folded white piece of paper over. And so my attorney looks at it. He folds it back and hands it over to me. It says settlement for $7,000 with the 7,000 crossed over. And then it said 6,000. I looked and I said, hell no, pass this back.
Okay.
Like, what am I going to settle for? What do I look like paying you $6,000 for something I did not do?
Yeah, you did not.
I'm like, if you don't get out of here with that. So the judge says, okay, I'm ready to rule. I understand what's going on now.
Okay, good.
Miss Holt, I'm glad that I heard from you. And then he says, there is no case here. Hits his gavel. The whole entire courtroom is clapping and cheering in the movies. It was the funniest thing.
Did you look at your ex when all that was going on?
Oh, absolutely. At that point in time, I was a year and a half out, and I was at a whole different place in my life. My strength, like, I had been working on myself, my posture, my strength, like everything. So I could look at him and like,
love it.
That didn't have that funny feeling in the pit of my stomach because I had truly been practicing this. I had on some bad heels. I had on a nice dress. Like, I made sure that when I went to court this day, you're going to see all of me. Right. I am not the same person, right? I am no longer that person. And, I made sure that my posture was tight when I went in that courtroom.
That's the beauty of you using your voice, finding your strength and using your voice.
Yeah.
That's undeniable. Yes. Undeniable. And congratulations on that part. Wow. I was sitting in there. I would have been clapping as well.
It was the craziest thing. You know what? I say that, my name was the last thing that he could take from me. Right? You tried to hurt me. You tried to take my life. You tried to do all of these things. The last thing you can do is ruin my name. Yeah. Because that's all that we have is our name, right?
Absolutely.
And you tried to ruin that. But again, you did not prevail, right? It did not work because that was not, I truly believe that's not what God had for me. Right. And what that wasn't it. And so
can you see this
she said it's like they were in court.
Blind guy, his wife in their life is like they were in court, playing court, like we used to play house at house, shaking my head.
Yes. That's like it. Yes.
And true, this is tough. It's also strengthening to know that the tribe, this must have been earlier, was true as they really embraced you in your unveiling, talking about your fam. Yeah, that got to me right there. I could see it. I saw it in my head. So can we pivot to March 2015?
May
2015.
Mm-hmm.
And you were driving on the street.
Yeah. May 29th. of 2015. I was on my way to the gym. I just left work. I was on my way to the gym on the highway, and the traffic was backed up, which on this particular highway, never.
Mm.
But the traffic was backed up. It was moving really, really slow, backed up for miles. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And as we finally, start moving, inching up, and on the, in the grassy median on the other side of the highway, there was an accident. It was a really bad accident. And there was a car that was in the middle of the highway. It looked like it was maybe had been a Corvette. And the front of it was all smashed in. And there, it was just a wreck over there.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got up to it, I always, and I don't care where I am, if I see an accident, I always pray for
Yeah.
whoever. Always. That's just what I automatically, I just start
I
praying.
do that too.
You do too?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as I'm praying, I get this just, I don't know, weird feeling. I got chills, and I just got this weird feeling just came over me. And I just
Where did you feel it in your body?
It was my whole body.
Oh.
Like my whole body was just, I can't even describe the feeling. It was just a very weird sensation. And I was like, okay, God. And I just started praying harder. I was just praying harder. And I don't know who I was praying for. I don't know why, but me and God just having this conversation. All right, okay. And then a few minutes later, I get a phone call. And it was a friend of mine, a male friend of mine. He was like, he's from New York. So he was like, yo, Son.
That sounds about right.
Right. And I was like, what? What's going on? He was like, yo, did you see the news? And I'm like, I'm driving. I'm on the highway. What's going on? He was like, yo, staff, he, got accident and say he did this and did that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Wait a minute. Accident where? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me what I just saw, what I just passed is him?
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I don't know. So I'm like, all right. So we talked for a few. He's looking at all the different news channels back and forth. It's all over the news. But nobody is saying names. They're just reporting on an accident. They're reporting on two different situations. One was an accident, a car accident. And then they're also reporting on a situation at a home in a different part of town. So there were two different things going on
Simultaneously, or within that block of time.
Yeah, that they're reporting on these two incidents.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of flipping back and forth from between these two incidents that happened on the same day. And so I get to the gym and I told my trainer, I'm like, look, I can't work out on the equipment. I need to stay by the TV so I can see what's going on. So I'm on the treadmill watching the TVs, waiting for like a picture to flash up on the screen to see if this is him in this accident that I saw. So my hour or so was up. I'm on the highway. I get on the highway. I'm going home. My phone rings. One of my cousins calls me. And he said, did you see the news?
Mm.
Now, the incident at the house, they're saying was
your house or his house or just another house?
This was a whole nother house.
Okay.
Whole nother house in a different part of town. There was someone that was deceased at the home. And so they're saying it was a woman that was deceased. And so the phone call that I got, and my cousin says, "Did you see the news?" And I said, "No, I'm driving." And I just asked them, "Was it?" And I just said the name,
Mm-hmm.
not male name. I said, "Was it Morgan?" And he said, "Yes." And I pulled over and I broke down crying.
Who was Morgan?
So Morgan was, when I left him and I found out that he was seeing another woman, she was the woman that I said that I talked to. The customer
Yeah.
was her.
Oh, that's right, because you knew her name from the phone records. And that part I didn't know.
Yes. So now this had been 7 years since I left. I left in 2008. This was 2015. He had continued to see her all those years.
But wasn't he still married? Girl.
After I left him, he went back to his wife, which he had been, I believe, and this was one of those things that I don't know to this day, that he was going back and forth. So those 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and all that, he was living a double life.
He
Okay.
was, yes, he was.
He was
Yeah.
living a double life. And
Mm.
so when I left him, basically Morgan became the me.
Yeah.
He continued with the wife. The wife was the constant, right? So he was always going back and forth between the homes. And not only had he started seeing her, or still continued to see her, he had a baby with her. And the baby was one. And both of them were deceased.
He unalived both of them? Girl.
He did. He did.
Mm.
So the incidents, the two different stories that the news was reporting were actually linked. They didn't know it at the time. They just knew that there were these two different incidences.
Oh
But
my God.
finally, the story got put together because that had happened that morning where he had done what he did in one whole different part of town. And at like early in the morning, and then left, went home to where he lived with his family, the wife and the family.
Oh my God.
And then sometime that afternoon, he leaves driving on the highway. A off-duty police officer had seen the car because a APB had now been put out in the car because they had found her and the baby at the home. And the neighbors knew the kind of car.
Oh, that's how it came together. I was always wondering.
Yeah.
I didn't
So
know if it was a police chase. I
yes.
didn't know, but
Yes.
oh my God.
So he's on the highway. Actually, an off-duty police officer had seen the car, spotted the car, gives chase. He goes across a grassy median, and the story is that he was on the phone with a family member or something, and was trying to blame what had happened, saying that she had actually did that to the baby and then herself, which
Girl, are you?
true. Yeah, which was not true at all.
Oh my God.
So when he crosses over the grassy median into traffic coming the other way, hits a car, it actually ended up killing. Well, when the accident happened, another car. It was like 3 cars that were in the accident, but one car had actually a brother and a sister in it that were traveling to meet their family at the beach for vacation.
Oh no.
And they
How
did.
old were they?
They were in their 60s.
Oh.
They were in their 60s, a brother and a sister, that were
Mm.
traveling, and they did not make it. And then the person, my my
Eh,
I call him jackass, yes, but I'm trying not to say
we can use that. I think
okay.
YouTube will be okay with that.
Okay, well that's typically what I call him, is jackass. So
Yeah.
he did not make it in that as well. So the car that I saw, that the front of it had caught on fire. Um, and so, yes, that's what happened. So those two different incidents were all linked, and they were
Whew.
essentially, he had was the cause of 5 people losing their lives that day.
Jesus.
4 of them that were, 2 innocent, just people that were on their way to meet their family for a
Mm.
vacation, and then this woman and her child.
So so I know the off-duty police officer saw him, but did he call it in and
I'm not.
Jackass was just driving and that's when or were they chasing him?
I believe there was an actual chase.
Oh my
I
God.
believe there was a chase that ensued. I do believe
I'm
that's the
speechless.
story that the news put out. Yeah. So there was a lot that went on that day.
Yeah.
And there many lives were changed that day just because of the decisions of one person.
Exactly. Just that ripple effect.
Just a ripple effect. That you have families that are torn apart um, because of this individual and a choice. Yeah, and it's sad.
Was his family an enabler to his actions?
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and still, like, after that happened, like one of his brothers was kind of like the spokesperson for the family,
Uh-huh.
and they were still upholding, that, and saying that that's not what truly happened. Um, that he
Wow.
called and said that she did it. And yeah, so yeah, yeah. And there were other things that had came out. I'm not even, I won't get into, uh,
Right.
but there were things from his past, that had come out. Um,
Mm.
and again, stories that he had told me, but had told me a whole different version, that that's truly not what
Oh,
it was.
I'm not going to talk about it now. Maybe it could be a part 2. But
It,
I
it
think
can
I
be a
know
part
what
two.
you're Okay, we can
It,
do that.
it can be a part two.
Thank you so much, but I think I know what you're talking about. So I'll just hold it
Yeah.
because I really want Okay. So everyone, you hear this story. I knew some of it from watching um her your show, What Evil Sleeps Here, Lives Here.
Evil lives here. Uh-huh.
Evil lives here. However, black girls getting their shift together. We're solution based here. And in this particular incident, I see your organization, your nonprofit, scars as solution based.
Yeah.
So even though like Quita's talking about fire, like see fire.
That's what I was talking about. Remember, I said it was going to come back about that fire?
Isn't
Yes.
that something?
Yeah.
She said Jackass is the only one that burned, even though there was
Yes.
tragedy for so many.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And this got to me right here. She said, see, those chills were the universe saying,
Yes.
child, don't waste that prayer. Karma got this.
Yes. But I believe that those chills was my release. And that was God finally because up until that time, in those 7 years, I was still looking over my shoulder. I would go to the store, I would still be really aware, is he around the corner? oh, that's somebody that looks like him. You know, I was still, even though I was gone, I was still very careful and cautious, right?
Right.
We had outside of our court appearances, I had never seen him out in public. We didn't share any common or mutual friends. So,
Mhm.
you know, I didn't have to worry about seeing him in that particular instance. But, you know, when I was out, I was always very cautious. And so that I think was universe and creator telling me you can let go now, and that it was released. Um, and you know, that's how I look at that.
Mhm.
And I'm grateful, you know, for that okay, I can let go now.
When you said that and I was listening to you, I was thinking as if of course you being set free, or
Mhm.
that I don't want to say a trauma bond because y'all weren't together, but it still does. That trauma lives in your body, anybody's
Absolutely.
body. And I
Absolutely.
yeah, and I believe that that was the release of it, just for you
Mhm.
to spontaneously cry. I mean,
Mhm.
the universe knows what it's
The
doing.
universe, look. Absolutely.
It really does.
Absolutely. So, yeah. So through that, and I had, you know, I had started scars 2 years prior to. Um, and so
Oh, did
this,
you?
I started scars in 2013.
So let's talk about scars.
Yeah.
And before you go into that, I want everybody to take a look in the chat. I dropped Sonja's, there it goes, her information for Scars. So Scars is her nonprofit. So there's the website I just dropped, as well as her email, her phone number, her social medias. I really want you all to reach out to her. And if you know someone that can use some guidance, some coaching about DV, but can you talk about Scars?
Yeah. So, second chance of renewing self. Um,
I love that.
thank
I
you.
love that.
That's all of him and none of me. Okay. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, I started the organization in 2013 as really just to be a way to be able to educate and bring awareness about domestic violence. That was the original thought process behind it. Started out with just an annual domestic violence awareness event called Purple Pillow Talk. And
Oh, see,
yes, it's all about the purple.
all about the purple. So for my audio listeners, I have some mood lighting behind me, and it's
Mhm.
um Sonia, do you want to describe the color and what the color stands for?
Yes, so it is a beautiful purple, and purple is the color for domestic violence. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we started the organization 2013, and it has evolved now into a full service self care, or I'm sorry, after care organization. We do focus on prevention and healing. Um, and so we provide like one on one healing support services, we provide financial assistance.
Do you? I
Mhm.
didn't know that.
We do
That
some
is
financial
so
assistance
helpful.
as well, yeah, for survivors. So things such as like deposits for apartments, we've helped pay for car repairs, we've helped pay for utility bills for individuals. We don't do emergency services like emergency hotel stays, but we help in transition. So anything that can help individuals that have been affected or survivors of domestic violence be self sufficient. That's what we want to focus on. And in our healing support services, we do one on one case management, healing coaching. And so just walking alongside survivors and help them navigate their recovery and their healing.
Yes.
And so that's what we do.
So these are some of the key words that I heard you say that resonated. I love that you said prevention
Mm-hmm.
and how you walk people through it,
Mm-hmm.
and then the coaching.
Mm-hmm.
of course, the financial
Mm-hmm.
assistance, because aside from the psychological stronghold, sometimes I feel, I know, let me say that, I do know some women who want to leave. They are working through that psychological where they are strong enough psychologically, but then the financial aspect, they cannot. So
Yeah.
that is so crucial and so needed. And
Yeah.
then, of course, the recovery assistance. And Quita said the same thing. Wow, full recovery assistance
Mm-hmm.
in so many ways, sending more blessings.
Thank you.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So, I've just taken, what I've been through because, my personal mission had just been like to break the myths that society has about domestic violence. I started calling myself the myth buster at one time. And
Yes.
it's
That
all
is
about
so
us just, yeah, we have to have these conversations, like, because the only way that this ends is through prevention and awareness. That's it. We have to educate. We have to educate, educate, educate. And if people don't know what it truly looks like, because it's not always physical, right? We talked about the emotional and the psychological. Those are the things you can't see it.
you
It
can't.
You might hear it, but a lot of times we still don't equate, like, this is what this is. Name calling is not a good thing. And so if we particularly educate our young kids about what this is and how this truly looks, then we don't raise up individuals who become this thing, right? So we got to educate. We have got to talk about it. And I'm not afraid to talk about it.
You are not, because
I am not.
you spent more time with me than I expected. But I'm honored, first of all, and so thankful and grateful that you did take this time, because you're right. Education is key. Because listening to your story on TV, I remember you, or no, it was another interview, and you said that you didn't think you were being a
Mhm,
or in DV
mhm,
because he never put his hands on you. This was in the beginning part. Well, he never touched me. So, because of the education, you can absolutely share that. Okay, well, it may start with the mouth, but then it may end with fist or pow pows,
mhm,
or you
mhm.
fill in the blank, or the ultimate ending.
Indeed.
It's
And
so needed. And you don't talk with, oh, this is what I really love about you. When you speak, it is without guilt or shame.
no.
I believe a lot of Black women, and I'm speaking for Black women because I'm a Black woman and I have had a past and still working through certain aspects of my life, incidents that's happened. And I held a lot of guilt and shame from it. But there's always healing in the conversation. And people go through incidents, and more people go through it than you would think. So then we have the, if we're in DV situations, our aggressor will
Mhm.
isolate us. But then
Mhm.
we also have that self isolation as well because of that compounded guilt and shame.
Yeah.
So this is a healing conversation.
Yeah.
I am all here for it. And I really want people listening, please share Sonja's contact information. May I tell people where you're located, which state?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Sonja's located in Virginia. Now, this is for my audio people. I look at the analytics. Sonja and I talked about it. Virginia, you all are listening to me. I don't want to take up most of this time and yell out some of these cities, but the reason why I'm mentioning the state, can you can you talk about this event, this
Yeah,
upcoming event? And anybody watching, please take a screenshot of my screen right now. And if you can describe the upcoming event for our audio listeners as well.
absolutely. So October, we will be hosting our October 21st. We will be hosting our third annual Unmask the Night Domestic Violence Survivors Gala. And this is a night really just of celebration. And it's our way of celebrating survivors and bringing those that have survived, intimate partner um, situations together, advocates, allies, friends, and just anyone that wants to just show support. Just to come out for a night. It'll be live entertainment. We have dinner, of course, dancing, raffles, silent auctions, and lots of fun. And so it is a Roaring 20s theme this year. It's not
Yes.
Roaring 20s attire isn't required, but it's definitely encouraged. Um, and it will be in Richmond at the Lewis Ginter Botanical Gardens. Um, the tickets are available on our website, which is www.scarsorg.com. Tickets, yeah, you can find tickets there. We have two different ticket options. There's a VIP cocktail reception from 6 to 7, and then our dinner gala event just starts at 7 p.m. So anyone is welcome if you just want to just show your support. If you can't make it and you just want to support, donations are always welcome for us to continue really just to do our work. And so, the tickets will just go towards us being able to continue to do the work to empower survivors in their recovering and healing.
Absolutely. I encourage anyone. Now, these are for the people who do not live in, is it Richmond, you said?
Yes.
Who do not live in Richmond. This is everybody else. Because, Sonja, if you didn't know, Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together podcast is global. Last
Yeah.
time I checked, it's streamed in over 35 countries.
Nice.
So, with that being said, if you all just want to make a donation, purchase a ticket, and gift it to someone,
Mhm.
it does. She's telling you what they do, so it goes beyond just the event. We see the recovery assistance of it all. Ah,
Mhm.
I love it. If you,
Thank you.
if anybody wants a part two to Miss Sonja Holt, please drop a number 2 in the chat comment section right now. Any parting words?
Um, I will say this, that if you are someone that's out there and you know someone who is going through, if you see it, say something.
Yeah.
We have to challenge individuals in their behaviors and let them know that it's not okay. If you know someone who may be in denial about what they're going through, or if you're just looking to help someone, just be a support to that person. Um, as I said earlier, it's not as always as easy to leave as we may think or what we may want it to be. So
Mhm.
just continue to support and don't leave the person. Check on them and just let them know that you're there when they need you. Um, Healing isn't easy, but it's necessary. It takes time and it's a process, but it's totally doable if you stay the course. Um, but you got to do the work,
Can
right?
you repeat that again?
You got to do the work.
One more time.
You got to do the work.
Absolutely. You got to do the work. And if if you don't think putting in the work won't work, you're looking at a woman right now who has put in the work and it shows. And her putting in this work, we talk about the ripple effect that jackass, as you call him,
Mhm.
his ripple effect that he's made that particular day and in the past. But then look at this ripple effect that Sonja has for everyone. And from this painful incidents of this relationship and the pain into purpose, as we say.
Mm. Yeah.
You are a wonderful soul. Oh my God. This was amazing. Um,
Thank
I thank you so much for coming on.
you. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love
So, I will hope to see you for part 2. We'll talk offline. But,
Continue.
everyone, thank you for hanging in there. You all stayed online to listen to this impactful story. If you have any questions, comments, you can always reach me on social media, Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. If you like what you heard, if anything resonated in your soul, made your soul vibrate, please like, comment, share. Anyone listening on the audio, give your girl a 5-star review. I don't mind. And you can also follow and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. Have a good evening, Sonja. You are everything, everything. And everyone, thank you for listening to Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. And see you next week.
Blessing.
Good night.
This for the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and Buddha walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kiss goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti. Black girl magic, melanin popping. Whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together.